everyone. First of all, let me thank my colleague Alessandro Doria for hosting this meeting and for opening the session, and the president of Propeller Club, Mr. Masucci. We have a strong cooperation with Propeller, and it's a great pleasure for me to be here. Some months ago, we produced specific papers on Albania maritime economy. I think you already had the executive summary. This is just the executive summary, but you can download the full report, which is far more detailed than I can be in few minutes. So first of all, let me check. I think the presentation. I hope at least. Okay, this is the executive summary you already have. This is the outline of my presentation. I will start by focusing on why the Mediterranean is essential both for global trade and for the shipping industry. Then I will move on the growing role of this part, this region of the Mediterranean, I mean the Adriatic Sea. And finally, a specific focus on Albanian port. Let me start with a global outlook. We are in the Adriatic Sea, which is part of the Mediterranean, which is part of the global economy and the global seas. The first point is that the Mediterranean is the cornerstone of the world economy. And just to give you a figure to understand why I'm saying so, if we put together the GDP of all the countries which are around the Mediterranean, both on the north side, which is the European side, and the south side, which is the North African and MENA countries, Middle East and North and African countries, we have a GDP of 24 trillion of GDP. 24 trillion of GDP. I perfectly know that we cannot put in the same box apples, pies, bananas, and so on. I mean, I know that Morocco is not France, Italy is not Egypt, Albania is not Spain. There are huge differences among these countries. But the point is that the Mediterranean is a small lake, which is only 1% of the global seas, and around this small lake we have 24 trillion of GDP, which is more or less the GDP of the United States, which is the most important GDP of the world. So just to have in mind that the small lake is in the middle of one of the most important GDP areas in the world. And we can clearly see why it's so important, the Mediterranean, checking the red numbers. 20% of the global shipping traffic is passing through the Mediterranean, 27% for containers. We have 20 ports which have more than 1 billion tons of goods, 30% of traffic on oil and gas, and a strong increase, plus 120% growth of containers traffic since 2005. So very, very strong numbers. And during the past 2 years, we experienced in the Mediterranean a specific crisis that all of us very well know, which is the crisis in the Red Sea, with consequences in the number of traffic through the Mediterranean. And you have some key numbers to sum up what happened. Minus 70% of average Suez transit in 2024 on 2023, minus 90% traffic for container ship, minus 50% traffic for bulk tankers. But now the situation is expected to slowly become better. And nevertheless, if we look at the forecast on average annual growth 2024-2029, so coming years for containers traffic, we see that the forecasts are still positive for the Mediterranean and well above the average at the world level. So, notwithstanding the crisis in the Red Sea, which is a contingency we can see due to the political situation, is expected to recovery hopefully as soon as possible, but nevertheless, the Mediterranean remain a crucial area in the world maritime economy. And a strong and important part of the Mediterranean is the Adriatic region. Again, I think that it's very clear the Adriatic Sea is a gateway. It supports the Balkans and Central Europe with its maritime and energy infrastructures. And again, if we put the same exercise, if we put together the GDP of the 6 countries, Albania, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Croatia, Italy, Montenegro, and Slovenia, which are all around the Adriatic Sea, we have 2.5 trillion GDP, which is more or less 14% of the GDP of the European Union. And that means that it is an important share of, and it's an important also from the economic, I mean from GDP point of view, it's an important part of Europe. And as you can see, we had a constant growth in containers traffic in the last 3 years, reaching 3.9 million TEUs, with, as I said, a constant growth. So what I mean is that this region, the Adriatic region, is a key region in the context of what we have seen about the Mediterranean. But what we clearly see, and I think it's well developed in the report, especially if you look not the executive summary, but the full report that you can download. We clearly see from the perspective of maritime economy that the Adriatic Sea is strategic from the geopolitical point of view, because it has got a regional integration role in 3 different sectors, which are in a certain way related to with the role of ports. The first point is industry supply chain reorganization. We are experiencing a sort of regionalization of the globalization, which is very clear, and in a certain way also the Trump administration decision about tariff goes in this direction, and especially for the perspective of the integration of Albania into the European Union, it's very clear that this country can be an important part where to re-establish, reshaping, reshoring industry activities, and especially in the logic to bridge into the European Union. So there is a question of industry supply chain reorganization and the role of the country in this context. The second point is ports, logistics, and maritime economy, which are strategic sector for all these countries, for my country, but especially for Albania and for the other countries in the Adriatic Sea, because the Adriatic Sea is a corridor from Asia to enter into the core of Europe. And there is also a relation with another sector which is improving, especially here in Albania, which is tourism, which is strictly related with the maritime economy sector. And the third part is energy. Energy sector is crucial for all Mediterranean countries, and again, energy sector is causing the role of ports, because ports are becoming more and more energy hubs. So from these 3 angles, we can see Italy and Albania that could play with their cooperation a strategic and crucial role, not only for the bilateral relations, but also for the relations of the 2 sides, I mean EU side from Italy point of view, and the regional Balkans side from Albania perspective. So we must look to Albania economy from this perspective, from this angle, not only as a single country, but as a part of this macro scenario. The GDP is growing, as Mr. Doria has already said, and has grown more than plus 36% in the last 10 years. Forecasts for 25-29 are plus 3.5% GDP per capita, and also GDP per capita is growing. Foreign trade reached the peak of 12.6 billions with a plus 33% compared to previous COVID period, 2019. And most important, 18 billions of foreign trade is by maritime mode, is by sea, which is what I want to underline, just to say that a large part of the economy of this country is related with maritime economy. In 2024, cargo handled by ports were 7.7 million tons, plus 90.6% change if we compare to 2014, and plus 6.7% the annual growth in the 10 years between 2014 and 2024. The recent redefinition of the European TEN-T transport network also placed Albania in a very important position, given the presence of Western Balkans Eastern Mediterranean corridor, which connect Albania to Italy and all the most important Balkan countries. The country's infrastructure is also benefiting from its inclusion in the European Union's TEN-T corridors, with 11 road, rail, and maritime infrastructure projects underway. And I think it's well explained. Sorry, I thought. Sorry, this was the slide related to my explanation. Sorry, I thought it was there. So you can see the figures I was talking about, and I was talking about the country's infrastructure is also benefiting from its inclusion in EU TEN-T corridors, with 11 projects on road, rail, and maritime infrastructure which are underway, and the Durrës-Porto Romano-Pristina railway is one of the most important projects for the reason I was telling before, because it's not only the role of Albania, but the role of Albania linking with the neighboring countries. Okay. What are the main maritime EU partners for Albania? Italy, my country, and 25% of the market share, if we put the pie on 100%, 20% for Turkey, which is the second one, then Greece, 14, Spain, and all the other countries. If we look from the port perspective, the Italian ports of Bari, Ancona, but also Gioia Tauro, are the main ports, and for each country you have the main ports detailed in the report. And as I said, Albania is also a bridge to Kosovo and North Macedonia, so we have to read these numbers in the perspective of the trade relations also from Italy and the other countries with Kosovo and North Macedonia. Let's now look more in details. The main cargo transported and port traffic, you can see that oil products with 26% are the most important. This is the last quarter of 2024, so very, very updated information. Then we have metal products and non-metallic products, which are main cargo transported by sea in Albania. You can clearly see in the map that the port of Durrës is more clear. Is by far the most relevant with 95% of share and a plus 14 2.5% of traffic increase compared with 2022. And then you can see clearly that all other ports follow with minimal market share. So the port of Durazzo is clearly dominating the market. Let's now touch the point of Italy-Albania port network relations. You can clearly see that Port of Bari, 41%, and Port of Ancona, with 19%, are the two most important Italian ports for bilateral relations, and by the way, two Adriatic ports, which is clearly related to the geography of our two countries. If we look by category, 64% of trade is by Ro-Ro modality, 21% liquid bulk, 9% containers, 6% dry bulk. So Ro-Ro modality is the most important in trade relation with Italy. And we have to clearly remember that this one, that ports are not only for goods but also for passengers, and in 2023 Albania reached the peak of 1,734,000 passengers in the first part of 2024. I mean the first 9 months of 2024, 750,000 passengers. I think that the last number for 24 will be more or less the same of 23, and these are remarkable numbers if there is also a growing role of Italian tourists using ferry for their summer holiday in Albania. And as Mr. Doria already mentioned, we specifically published a report on the tourism sector in Albania last year that you can find and download in our website. As I said, Durazzo is by far the most important port of Albania. 80% of traffic is for import, 18% of traffic is for export. Albania is a small country, need to import a lot, and this is a clear picture of this situation, with a total throughput of 7,354 kilotons of quantity of goods. Let me also check with you the Durazzo calls, which if we look the total numbers of port calls in 2024, the port of Durazzo reached the peak of 1,693 calls. That is another indicator of the remarkable role. Passenger ferry were 59%, and is the main category, followed by general cargo, 17%, and multipurpose and container ship, both with 7%. Well, we all know that there is an important project already mentioned to develop into a sort of port hub. Porto Romano will become the main commercial port. There is an investment of 390 millions, 400 hectares area, so a very large area, a new container terminal, an economic free zone, which is quite important. We are starting to finally developing the special economic zone in the southern Italian regions, which is something that we expect also as a bank to leverage the opportunity to attract new investment in Italy, and I'm quite sure that the same will be for Albania. In perspective, I told you in one of the first slides that attracting industry around the port is one of the main objectives that we clearly see. And there is also the 16-meter deep canal for the construction of large ships, also for this kind of activity. The impact is very, very well described in these numbers: 2 million containers per year, 50 million tons of goods, 1 million passengers, and between 1.2 and 1.8% plus of GDP. And the Durazzo port that will be transformed into a touristic port with an investment of 2 billion and a new yacht and marina project. It's very clear that this project will substantially upgrade port efficiency and their impact in Albania economy and the overall region. Let me conclude with this slide, which is in a certain way, how can I say, to look in a long-run perspective or in a new perspective, the role of ports. I mean, ports, as I said before, are not only logistic node for goods and passengers, they are evolving into energy hubs. What we clearly see in Italy, and especially for the South Italian ports, ports are, as I said, becoming energy hub. Why I'm saying so? If you look, for example, pipelines which are connecting for oil and gas Italy with the South, with the North African countries, are all arriving close to ports. Ports are the place where we, at least in Italy, but also in North Europe, we have the chemical industry. And chemical industry need to be converted into biochemical industry. Think about biofuel, for example, biofuel production. This is an important part of industry which is always close to ports. Ports, again, if I look at the most important experience in North Europe, but also in the Mediterranean, are now becoming producer of green energy, with solar plant, but also with wind plant, especially in North Europe, it's with wind plant. And why? For what? To support both the shipping industry, but also to support industry located close to ports. So this is just, I mean, three puzzles to let you understand that also for Albanian port to move into the perspective of a role of ports as energy hub, and especially green energy hub, is a very important and positive perspective. And we know that the Port of Durazzo, for example, has an action plan for sustainability and low carbon, to become a low carbon port, so to move in this direction. So this is simply to also give some perspective and to remember that we have to go and to build a development which can be sustainable and also related to the most important trend that we have in the European Union, especially because we want Albania in the European Union in the coming years. Thank you very much for your